A controversial lyricist with a biting sense of humor, Eminem is one of the best-selling hip-hop artists of his time.
When Eminem hit, he hit really big.
He sold 1.7 million copies his first week.
But before the fame, he endured a hard-knock, lone parent childhood and nearly died in a playground incident.
It seemed like he was going to have permanent nerve damage.
His life has been a non-stop battle against rap rivals, against angry protesters.
2, 4, 6, Eminem is full of hate.
In an age of political correctness, this guy is like a nuclear bomb.
And against his own family.
She said to him that she wished that Eminem was dead and not Ronnie.
Until he finally conquered the world of hip-hop.
And it's controversial. People wanted to make him. His talent always stood out. That's what makes a great artist.
I don't feel like I have to compromise my style for nobody.
By 1997, Eminem had spent nearly a decade trying to make a name for himself in the cutthroat world of hip-hop, with little success. He was 25, unemployed, homeless, and had a one-year-old child to support. On the night of the 27th of October 1997, Eminem was given a chance to prove his skills in a tough hip-hop battle called the Rap Olympics.
Rap Olympics is a big event that this hip-hop activist Wendy Day started in LA.
It was a competition where MCs got together, the best of the best, to put their so-called freestyle skills to the test.
The winner would receive $500 and an imitation Rolex. But Eminem's financial situation had become so desperate, even this meager prize meant everything to him.
He really needed to win. He needed the money. He wanted to be able to hawk the Rolex in order to live for another couple of weeks. I'm sure to him it was a make or break kind of thing.
As a white interloper in the field of mostly African-American contenders, Eminem was decidedly out of place.
He was, a skinny white boy from Detroit. The reaction was sort of like, oh, come on.
Then he stepped up to the mic.
When he delivers, I think people were stunned. It didn't take that long before they could see what he had.
Within 30 seconds, they knew. Yeah, he was the crowd favorite.
He'd won over the crowd that night, but Eminem would walk away with an unexpected prize.
Damn! Eminem! Eminem!
It wasn't the first time Eminem had faced tough odds. His entire life had been a series of hard-fought battles. He was born Marshall Bruce Mathers III on October the 17th, 1972, in the quiet Missouri town of St. Joseph. His surroundings may have been peaceful, but his upbringing wasn't.
The basic story about Eminem's childhood that everyone knows is that he didn't have a very good one. His mom was very young when she had him, that he came from a marriage that was short-lived and abusive.
Debbie Nelson was just 15 when she married 19-year-old mill worker Marshall Bruce Mathers Jr. in 1970. Soon after baby Marshall was born, Debbie left her husband, claiming his behavior was erratic and abusive. For the next few years, she and her young son lived a transient life all over the Midwest.
We had a bunch of different households with a bunch of different neighborhoods, lived with relatives for periods of time. His mom was kind of in and out of employment, so he never really had a solid foundation.
Debbie wasn't very educated, didn't have a lot of support. There wasn't a lot of money. It was bad.
It's hard to make friends if you're always changing locations, changing schools, getting picked on. Either consistently make new friends or just keep to himself and get through school and just get by.
But early on, Marshall did form a strong bond with one family member.
Debbie's brother, Ronnie, he got very close to him, and it was the only real paternal, older male role model type relationship that Eminem had. Somebody that Eminem could talk to about life issues and girls growing up. This example of strength and fortitude in the face of struggle. It was really significant for him.
Ronnie didn't just give Marshall a sense of stability. He also introduced the 11-year-old to the music that would come to define his life.
Eminem's Uncle Ronnie introduced him to hip-hop, gave him his first rap tapes. His earliest stuff was like LL. Then he got into Big Daddy Kane and Slick Rick.
Ronnie was really influential in bringing those artists into his life and bringing hip-hop into his life.
But just as Marshall was forming a bond with Ronnie, he was uprooted again. Debbie's grandmother asked them to help her with her ailing boyfriend, so Debbie and Marshall relocated to Michigan.
Eminem grew up around a lot of black people in Detroit, a lot of working-class black kids who gave him a very hard time.
He's white, he's tiny, his mom makes no money, so he's got to have the free poor kid lunch at school.
A lot of some of the normal sort of who am I questions that teenagers go through were kind of reflected through race with Eminem. He told me about wearing an Africa medallion to the mall. I was like, I'm sure that you got beat up. And he's like, yeah, pretty much.
The bullying culminated in an attack that nearly claimed Marshall's life.
He'd been getting jumped over and over and over.
There was a big dude who just never left him alone. One day on the playground during the winter, he just took it too far and hit M with this huge ice chunk, which basically blacked him out. He slammed his head on the frozen concrete.
Marshall was rushed to hospital. He was in a coma for days. No one could say if or to what extent he would recover.
It seemed like he was going to have permanent nerve damage and might be kind of a special needs kid from then on.
5 days later, Marshall regained consciousness. For a year, he was out of school, recovering, but having to take anti-seizure medication. Eventually, he got better, but the effects lingered. For months, he suffered panic attacks whenever he saw anyone resembling his attacker. The incident caused the already withdrawn adolescent to become even more introverted. Until, age 14, he discovered a passionate interest in hip-hop.
Started to get into rhyming. He would literally read the dictionary and sit there and just write rhymes like all night long.
You have these kind of cute images that Eminem has talked about of him in the mirror, you know, like a schoolgirl singing into a hairbrush, and instead of singing boy band stuff, he's rapping. This was just what spoke to him.
Even at 14, Marshall didn't see rap as a hobby. He was dedicated to the craft and gave himself a hip-hop stage name, M&M, after his initials.
You hear him talk about the amount of time he spent practicing.
He started religiously writing every night, doing the craft of writing rhymes. There's kind of like a little talent show circuit in his area. He started to do that pretty regularly.
But it wasn't like he had freaky confidence going in, and that's when he met Proof.
Proof was Deshaun Holton, a black teenager who went to a different school but lived on the same block as the Mathers family. When they met in 1986, Marshall found his first true friend and a fellow hip-hop aficionado.
M had a flyer that he had designed for a talent show and came across Proof and gave him one.
And Proof kind of approached him with this, like, who the hell are you kind of attitude. And Eminem just started rapping for Proof. And it turned out that Eminem and Proof had a very similar style of rapping, so they immediately formed a bond.
Once he and Proof became friends, at the time he was in a different high school. I sneak him in the door at lunch, because at lunch everyone freestyled. The whole thing that they would do is that Proof would basically bet all these people that they couldn't beat the white kid. And everyone just thought that was a joke because, you know, Eminem's a pretty white-looking white kid. So they were hustling. That definitely got him instant attention, to say the least.
He had a companion in arms here, you know, he had someone to like bond with over this mutual obsession with hip-hop and hip-hop culture and living that kind of life.
I wouldn't even say Eminem and Proof were friends. I think they were sincerely like brothers, and their relationship was on a whole other level.
He was the guy who walked with him as he was developing as a rapper and had these dreams of becoming famous.
Eminem was honing his rap skills at home, entering occasional talent shows, and trying out rhymes in school. But to win street cred, he'd have to take his rhymes into the Detroit hip-hop underground and do battle.